I moved into the house on the edge of town because it was cheap and because I thought I needed a fresh start. People whispered about it when I asked around. They said it had been empty for decades. They said the last family vanished overnight. They said the previous owner had gone mad and no one dared step foot inside. I ignored all of that. I told myself I was practical and rational and that stories like that were for children and fools. The first night I slept there, I thought I heard something moving in the walls. I chalked it up to old pipes settling or the wind against the broken windows, but I could not shake the feeling that the house was alive. It breathed when I did. Its floors creaked under invisible feet. The air smelled faintly of iron and wet earth like something had been buried just beneath the floorboards. I told myself I was imagining it and tried to sleep. But the dreams began that night. I dreamed of narrow hallways that stretched farther than they should, rooms I had never seen in the house when I walked in but somehow existed in my sleep. Shadows crowded those hallways. They did not move naturally. They twisted and bent as if the laws of physics were only a suggestion, and in those dreams I heard voices, whispers at first, then laughter, then screams. They spoke my name but not kindly. They said I belonged to the house now and that leaving was impossible. When I woke up, I could still hear faint scratching behind the walls. It was patient, waiting, calling. I told myself I was being paranoid, but the feeling in my chest made me feel like I had been holding my breath for hours. I did not dare touch the walls, but I could feel something inside them looking at me, something that had waited decades for someone foolish enough to move in. I tried to live normally. I unpacked. I set up my things. I worked from home and tried to ignore the noises, but every night it became harder to sleep. The shadows grew bolder. They crept along the ceilings and the floors and sometimes into the corners of my eyes so that when I turned my head they disappeared. The whispers became words. They promised me safety if I obeyed. They promised pain if I resisted. They promised me that I would never leave. Then I started seeing the children. At first I thought I was imagining them. Little figures standing silently in doorways or peeking from behind furniture. They had no faces, just dark empty voids where their eyes should have been. Sometimes they smiled at me. Sometimes they screamed. And always they were watching. They were always watching. I tried to leave once. I packed my car and drove to town. I bought groceries. I told myself I would never go back. But when night fell, I found myself on the street outside the house again. I could not remember how I got there. My mind blank. My hands shaking. The house sat silently waiting, its windows like dark eyes, daring me to enter. And I did. Because even though I knew it would not let me go, I wanted to see what it wanted from me. Inside, I discovered the basement. I had thought there was no basement. The realtor had told me it was a single-story home with a crawl space, but the door was real, rusted hinges, cold iron handle. I opened it and the stairs descended into darkness deeper than I could imagine. The air was thick and wet and smelled of rot. I heard the children laughing down there, and then I heard my own voice answering them even though I was standing at the top of the stairs. I walked down. I could feel the walls closing in, the shadows pressing against my skin. And when I reached the bottom, I saw the figure, tall, thin body, head tilted at an impossible angle, hands that ended in jagged claws. Its eyes were black holes and its mouth was too wide. It moved without moving. It existed without existing. It smiled at me, and I smiled back even though I did not want to. The whispers told me I was free. The shadows told me I was mine, and the children told me to join them. I tried to resist. I tried to run, but every step I took sent me further into the darkness. There was no bottom to the basement. There was no end, just endless corridors of shadows and laughter and voices that were mine and not mine at the same time. I do not know how long I have been here, days or decades or centuries. Time has no meaning. I have lost myself in the corners of the house, and yet the house has never lost me. The children follow me. The figure watches me, and the walls whisper promises I cannot refuse. I write this because if you ever come across this house on the edge of town, do not enter. If you hear the laughter of children in the dark, do not follow it. If you hear your name whispered softly in the night, do not answer. The house waits. It has been waiting for me and it will wait for you. And once you enter, it will never let you go. I used to think that fear was temporary, that nightmares ended with the dawn, but the house has taught me that true terror is endless. It does not sleep, it does not blink, it does not forget, and one day it will come for you too. I do not sleep anymore, not really. The house does not allow it. When I close my eyes, the darkness only grows sharper, the voices grow louder, the children's footsteps run circles around me, and the tall figure stands at the edge of my vision, waiting for the moment I finally give. And the only reason I have not completely lost myself is because I still hold a tiny thread of hope that there is a way out, even though the house laughs at me whenever I think about escaping. Sometimes I forget I was ever someone else. I forget that there was a world outside of these walls. I forget that sunlight once touched my face. But then something flickers inside me, a memory, a distant image of who I used to be. And I cling to it, because if I let go, there will be nothing left except the house breathing through me, like I am just another part of its structure, like I am timber and nails, and rot under its foundations. The children approach me more boldly now. They gather around me at night, forming a circle, their faceless heads tilted, as though they are studying a specimen in a jar. They reach out with cold, tiny hands and tug at my clothes, tug at my skin, tug at my mind. I ask them what they want, but they do not speak, they only giggle. And then their bodies twitch like broken puppets as they twist away, disappearing into the dark corners of the room. I have started calling them by names I once knew, though I do not think those names ever belonged to them. There are moments when the house pretends to be kind. It lets the lights flicker softly. It lets me feel warmth for a second. And then it shows me something else, something cruel, as if reminding me that comfort is a privilege it can take any time. I once found a door that I swear had never existed before. Faint light seeped from beneath it, warm golden light. I opened the door with shaking hands, desperate to believe that something good still existed beyond this place. But there was nothing behind that door, only a mirror, a tall full-length mirror in the heart of a room that should not exist. I stared at my reflection, but it did not stare back. My reflection was smiling, and I was not. It raised its hand and waved as if greeting an old friend. Then it stepped backward, and the mirror filled with shadows. My reflection was gone, and all I saw was the tall figure standing behind the glass, its head slowly leaning closer as if trying to push through. That was when I realized the house was learning me, memorizing me, adapting to me. The dreams, the voices, the shadows once felt random, but now they feel controlled, precise, intentional. Whatever this thing is, it is intelligent. And I fear that every hour I stay here, it learns how to make me break, how to make me kneel. I do not know if the tall figure is the house, or if the house belongs to it, but the children fear it, even though they are part of whatever haunts this place. Whenever it appears, they scatter, hiding in walls, floors, ceilings, anywhere that is not within reach. I tried to speak to it. Once I asked what it wanted from me, my voice cracked like I was choking on dust. It simply tilted its head wider and wider, until its face was almost upside down. Then its mouth stretched longer than humanly possible, and all I heard was a sound so low and deep it made my teeth ache and my bones feel hollow. I ran without thinking, but running here is pointless. The house shifts. It rearranges hallways and rooms like it is playing a game with me. I can run for hours and still end up exactly where I started. There is no exit, no logic, no mercy. Days ago or weeks ago, I found carvings on the basement walls, words etched into stone by trembling hands. They were from the people who lived here before, sentences scratched deep until their fingers must have bled. One message stood out more than the others: do not answer. When it speaks, my stomach twisted as I realized I had already answered. I had asked it questions. I had given it permission to communicate, permission to claim me. Last night the children brought something to my door. I heard them dragging it across the floor, their breath shallow and excited. When I opened the door, there was a body lying there covered in dirt. I thought it was dead, but then it gasped for air, its face turned upward, and I saw that it was my face, its eyes wide with terror. It whispered, "Help me," before the children tore it away into the darkness, screaming with delight, as though they were celebrating a feast. I stood frozen, unable to breathe, because I think it was a version of Me that still had a chance to escape a version. The house rejected a version I will never be again. The tall figure visits me nightly now. It stands closer. Before it used to linger in corners now. It stands just a few feet away, breathing softly like wind through dead. Leaves its fingers twitch as if eager to touch, but waiting for permission, or perhaps waiting for me to surrender willingly. Because that is the worst part. I think it wants me to accept it. I think it wants me to welcome the transformation. My skin tingles constantly like thousands of insects crawl beneath it. When I press my fingers into my arms, I swear I feel movement. A shifting like the house is slowly trying to replace what lives inside me. I hear bones cracking in rooms I am not in. I hear nails dragging across windows that I know have been nailed shut for decades. And when the house grows completely silent, that is when I am most afraid, because silence means it is listening. I write this now not to escape, but to warn you the house is patient. It waits for someone alone, someone vulnerable, someone desperate for a new beginning. That is how it traps you. That is how it trapped me. If you ever pass the house at the edge of town, do not look at it too long. Do not wonder what is inside. Do not think that stories are just stories. Because the moment you start imagining what is in here, the moment you feel curious, the moment you wonder if it could actually be haunted, that is when the house notices you. That is when the tall figure turns its head toward the outside world and whispers your name for the very first time. And once it whispers your name, it will never stop. I know this because I hear it now calling me, not the name I used to have, but the name it has given me in its own voice, in its own language, the name of someone who belongs to the dark. I used to fear waking up here, but now I fear the day I stop waking up altogether. Because then I will no longer be a visitor or a prisoner. I will be part of the house itself, a new voice in the walls, a new shadow in the corners, a new nightmare waiting for whoever moves in next. And I know someone will, because the house always gets hungry again.